The occult priestess, Corinne Wilson, is a master mystery school graduate experienced in the psychic arts, Reiki, alternative healing, tarot psychology, symbolic interpretation, Buddhism, 12-step recovery, counseling, cleansing and purification, states of consciousness, shamanic soul counseling, ascension and kundalini, rituals, spellcraft, soulcraft, star seeds, spiritual warfare, psychic self-defense, world mythology, hidden history, and many, many ancient traditions. Corinne, welcome to the show. And I'm sorry for botching that intro.
You all should have seen Corinne. She's like, all right, cut. Well, it's a pleasure to have Miss Occult Priestess up in here tonight. So. Hello and welcome.
Hello from Los Angeles, California. Yeah. How was your evening?
I'm glad I don't live there anymore.
Yeah.
I have to assume that it's all intentional. I know that a lot of people are talking about it's not. I know that a lot of people are saying the shadowy hand is trying to regroup and things are going awry, but I just continue to have this feeling that it's all going exactly as planned and that some of the sloppiness is intentional and some of it's really a test to see where the collective is. If you can throw Poopy Pants up and he turns around and starts shaking the hands of people we can't see and can't figure out how his way out until they shuffle him out. If they show you this, it's intentional. I mean, they can cut the screen at any time. And remember, they can feed into his head exactly what he needs to say. And there've been plenty of opportunities where he has done that, like salute the Marine, where he just says it out loud and they're, So I feel like the whole Dog and Pony show is absolutely doing what they want it to do. And that it's a test, a greater litmus test for the collective. And that's what I find even more sensational.
Yeah, I mean, I think the current thing changes literally day by day. I mean, whatever people
it definitely does.
Whatever people think the current thing is going to be for a long period of time doesn't even last a week. Like the Texas shooting is old news, which is fucking crazy. But I don't think anything's on accident, and I do think that there has to be some method or theory that they are
so fishy.
They're throwing these things at us, getting everybody riled up for 24 hours, and then the next day it's something completely different and new. Because they have the control of the narrative, they have the control of the media. They could be talking nonstop every single day about Roe v. Wade if they wanted to, but that's old news at this point. So I and even with Biden, what you were talking about, like he kind of that kind of like retarded, senile, confused presence, I think fits in with the constant shifting of the current thing on a 24-hour basis. And I think it's just because they're really prepping us for the big one, whatever the big thing is, not just the current thing.
Oh yeah, I think we're being bottlenecked in. The thing for people like us that have been watching and I guess staying in the game with our finger on the pulse enough to be in observance is that how absolutely ridiculous it is that every turn that Orange Man Bad made, I'm just saying that as a joke, right? Every turn, like if he flatulated, it was impeachable, right? Every turn the man made, there was just like craziness around it. And the current Poopy Pant Man there is so much impeachable stuff going on within that administration, not just with his son and the collusion there and all that stuff, but all this other stuff. And that if just, I don't know, 1/100th of the stuff that's actually appears to be true by looking at the receipts would have been true on the other side, then there would have been something impeachable, but there wasn't. None of that ever really sussed out because it was all folly. And so I'm not giving allegiance to any of these motherfuckers. I'm saying I'm looking at this and I think it's so hypocritical. And not only do I think it's hypocritical, but most of the crazed left right now, and I'm talking about the crazed left, I'm not talking about people in the center or the, I'm just talking about the extremists, and that it doesn't even matter. They don't look at receipts. They don't look at anything. And at this point, like when Elon Musk came in, and of course, everyone in the tech world understands how many bots are on everything. But I think that this idea of exposing how many bots are on these platforms, how many bots are adding to polls, how many bots are filling in numbers and giving crazy stats, that was a little bit of a gift to the collective. Now, whatever you want to think about him, and I have a lot of opinions, it's still, again, the pieces of the puzzle are out there in front of us, and it's our due diligence and I think deductive reasoning and critical thinking that gets us to a bigger picture, especially when we set aside our emotional tickers and our emotional stuff, because everything is definitely riding on emotionality.
The almost clown-like nature of reality, to me, it's going along with the age that we've moved into and the energies that are at play to really shock people out of this dependence on the state, on government, on medicine, on doctors, on authorities in general, and really get people to start to reclaim their own sovereignty and their own power over their lives, to make decisions for themselves and their families. I mean, it may have to get extremely bad for a majority of people to finally collectively just decide that this isn't working. We don't want this anymore.
I completely agree.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like they'll never get there, that people will just take whatever's given to them. But I think there is going to be a breaking point.
There is. Yep. I've been in the school system I have 4 kids. So my oldest is 37. I've been in the school system for a really long time. I've seen what they've done, how much power they've taken away from parents, how much perceived quotes, how much perceived power they have tried to say they've taken away from parents. And parents don't know any better because they don't go and read the schools. They don't read the educational codes. They don't know their rights. They listen to the people that tell them at the school, your child has to be here or you are going to get arrested. No, that's not the truth.
And work is moving so that we can be more mobile and nomadic in a sense, or we don't have to be tied to a certain location necessarily. And I really see a lot of people getting tired of the system to one degree or another, and starting to pull away from it. I
do too.
Alternative, homeopathic treatments, herbalists, all of these things are on the rise, and they're making lots of money right now because there is a huge shift in consciousness away from reliance upon the state, reliance upon allopathic medicine and the education system and all of these things. People are starting to just exit the system and find alternatives and create new communities. So I do think there is definitely some hope out there for sure.
So it's like a culling of the population that's going to lead to this like really more utopian, like earthy digital utopia. Like, I think that's possible, but we're in the stage where like the screaming SJW people are like gripping for their last, their last taste of power.
The other thing too is that it seems like we're normalizing mental illness in this country.
We're at an end of a civilization. I said
too.
it like a year ago, because reading history, every civilization comes to an end. It doesn't mean the civilization dies. It just means it's you go into a new civilization, go into a new like timeline, basically.
No, of course it's not. It's a, we're at a crossroads, and
Exactly.
it's an end for sure.
Yeah.
And it's a well-needed end. We need to.
Yes.
It's the fourth turning.
Yes.
Yes.
turn,
Yeah,
baby.
The fourth turning is so huge. I mean, that's we're in the freaking pit right now of the fourth
Yeah.
turning.
Reason. And I mean, there are just little things here that are so obvious. The fact that, say, Schwab, I mean, he couldn't be more of what he is. And then you look into his genealogy, and you look into his father, and, I mean, the apple fell right next to the tree. And so it's so obvious and in our faces. And those of us that are, we don't even have to be sharp to pick up on this stuff. You don't even have to be sharp to pick
95% of people do not know about Klaus Schwab, though.
I know this way.
That's the sad part, because they're watching fucking CNN and they're like brain dead.
Like they're just kind of automatons, just walking around doing their tasks. And I don't, if they're not wearing a mask, usually it's that one person in the checkout line that's ringing people up that's not wearing a mask that is more friendly than anybody else. But everybody else that's still wearing the mask, even though it doesn't seem like it's the store's policy for them to, because some people don't do it, that they're just sort of dead in the eyes. They don't pay much attention to anything. And the people I do know, like somebody I work with, I had to go back to the office one day a week, and this woman that I work with, who, I really like this woman. She's really nice. We've had great conversations. Now she won't get close to me. She's like got her mask on, and she's Chinese, right? So she's very much
joke.
Yeah, she was very much raised in the culture of, wear your mask and do everything that they tell you to do. So I can understand where she's coming from, but it was just kind of like I don't know how to interact with her anymore, because she wants to be behind this mask and stand in her cubicle away from me. And, it's just sad to see. A lot of the people I work with that I saw are wearing masks, except for this one guy who I actually hadn't talked to this guy much. And he has the craziest stories. He was in Mexico, or he was in California when COVID started, when the lockdown started. And then he went to Mexico, and he saw a cartel shooting, and he started an OnlyFans page. I mean, this guy was ready to just tell me his life story, but he wasn't wearing a mask, and he seemed great. So there certainly are a lot of people that just seem kind of, I don't know, not really there. It's hard to describe. Just dead.
No, they're not
eyes.
there. They are not there. They are following the news, and they are not thinking for themselves. They've checked out. They've totally checked out. I see it all the time.
More so than I think
delivery
before
for Uber, and we live in a college town, and there's people that cross the street that have masks on, and they don't even fucking look at the cars. They just cross, like they're not even there. They're not even people anymore. It's so weird.
The fluoride stare kind of.
Yeah,
people,
that's exactly, but with a mask on. And like not even looking to see if you're gonna go. Like, dude, you don't always have the right of way. Sorry.
I see this as Sophia's correction.
Yeah,
It's
it's
making it a lot easier to see things.
good point.
Yeah, I
It's-
also noticed like
Oh, hello.
I have a lot of friends who were on board with this whole thing the whole time and were fine with the mask. We're getting all the boosters or whatever. But I do notice that right now, right now in their head, everything is fine. Everything like it's back to normal. It's like this whole thing is over. It's back to normal. But that if like something on the TV immediately said, we need to bring the masks back, boom, they would have them on in a second. But I just think it's interesting now there is like a demographic of compliant people who truly think that they're not doing anything wrong by not wearing a mask, that you don't need to social distance, and that this whole thing is currently over. But I just know for a fact that it will only take one CDC announcement for them to totally do a 180 and go back to it, which is interesting.
Here where I'm at, even the stores have removed all of those 6 feet social distance stickers. They've taken the plexiglass down from in front of the cashier. They've relaxed their, nobody's required to wear masks anywhere here in Virginia, but it's like they've taken away all of the evidence that COVID was ever here, right? The plexiglass, the stickers, the signage, all of that just quietly just disappeared slowly. And still, you see people with the gloves, the surgical gloves, rubbing the alcohol on their hands when they get in the store. And it's just bizarre that they continue to do it. Like it's almost a habit now. And I've heard people say,
yes.
I just feel more comfortable in my mask.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
they do.
the mind control.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
before
it is.
I want to welcome Corinne, Occult Priestess, joined us.
Welcome, Occult
nice.
Priestess. Hey, girl, how are you?
Can you hear me? Test.
Yes.
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 loud and clear.
Great. Okay, thank you. I took a nap today and I just woke up in this topic because I was waking up being mad about this topic. And monkeypox, nobody's brought up monkeypox yet. Is what happened with that? I heard the K was silent.
We
Pox
brushed
upon the
the
people.
case. We brushed over it
The
real
case
quickly.
totally silent.
It's monkeypox is a joke. I mean, it's not.
Well, it actually so I do check the regular standard news, and it's back in the news with a vengeance. Just today, because again, Occult Priestess, I was like, where did it go? All of a sudden it was gone. Well, now they're amping it up, I think, in England. Drudge Report's got it over there. Again, that's mainstream, and it's a good finger for the pulse of all that. And then they're saying all these new cases have happened here in the States. So like
And remember, they locked down, was it all the Chinese people? And then that's recently stopped. So that means that's coming here, right?
yes.
Gonna have to quarantine the ravers.
Well, there's all kinds of woo around this because
And they're
lot of
saying it could be aerosol.
well,
it
they're
could be-
saying that, but they're also talking about the link between electric activation, so vis-a-vis millimeter
5G.
waves or something.
Oh.
Yeah, like that. That's actually part of the symptomatic release of stuff that's in the juice that everyone has.
Hmm.
The magic Fauci juice.
I was actually going to buy one of those EMF cloths that somebody had made it into like a hood.
Yeah, it was
Right, you can just-
Eric or Landman, right? Has all this.
Well, I don't know if Eric Landman makes them, but I think a lot of people are selling them. But
Sorry.
yeah, it's almost like a poncho with a hood. And I think I'm just going to start wearing those around everywhere.
I might start a subscription to my own negative blood.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of us that. Well, the blood talk lately is interesting too. People are following it. The blood banks are dry,
Yeah.
etc.
The blood is really interesting. What they're doing, we have
This is
gotten
because of global
no.
warming, though, right? Right. This
Of
is because
course, of
yeah.
course.
Well, of course.
But
I
we've
want to make
gotten
sure I want to make sure we stay, we stay on the facts here.
exactly. We've gotten no clear. I mean, we've gotten so much disinformation and so much information that could be real information. We don't know what is happening with the blood banks. When this first started, I talked to a guy. When I went to Washington, we stayed at a hotel, and I talked to a guy who worked for a blood bank, and he told me they were still accepting blood from vaccinated people. It wasn't anything that they were looking at. Like
They still
anybody
are.
could give blood,
They still are.
right? But the thing is that the people who they take that they do the COVID stuff with, it's their antibodies. It's not the blood.
What?
So it's
Yeah,
different.
I'm stumped.
Yes.
The
Suze,
well,
I'm following.
Red Cross will not accept vaccinated plasma donations, convalescent plasma. They will accept
Right.
blood.
They won't.
They won't.
Right.
They will not.
It's due to the spike protein.
Correct. But they will accept blood donations
Yeah, they probably sell it to the cement industry.
to strengthen the cement.
Now, yeah. It's the new sand.
good one, Rat.
It's a genetic rebar.
Exactly.
It's
But
crazy.
nonetheless, so with Saturn retrograde and these, I think personally, and of course, everyone knows I'm the Dark Queen in the house. I think that we are getting ready to look at some very, very crazy months these next 2 months. Of course, all the astrologers, Dan, you may chime in on this since you're an astrologer as well. And I know, Occult Priestess, you are as well, that there is a potential for a lot of really volatile stuff in the next 2 months. And then I was looking at a clip from an interview that, whether you love him or hate him, Uncle Cliff was on recently, and he said that all the people that have gotten juiced, when they realize, because now they're normalizing the sudden sudden death syndrome.
Yeah.
Sad.
That's so sad.
I like
It
listening
is,
to him
right?
because
Well,
I
I
want to
love
hear
Uncle
what's
Cliff.
going on in that mind.
I left Cliff.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to everyone, but I really appreciate Cliff.
He's
But
been
he said
pretty
he's-
absent and silent lately. I haven't heard from him.
Well,
Over a
You
month
talking about
now.
Cliff
Yes.
High?
Yeah,
Over a
Cliff
month,
High.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's got stuff going on in his private world, but he has been on a couple shows. But anyway, just to get to the point of relevance with this, he had said that there's going to be a mass wave of very pissed off people that when they
Yep.
come to this realization, they were duped with the juice duped.
Yep.
They're along with all this other now stuff, because in Australia there's a campaign right now. I don't know if you're paying attention to this, that if they're really pushing the fact that if you're not boosted, you're not fully vaxxed, and they've got all this stuff. I posted a commercial of it. All these people that ended up with the Rona, that they were fully boosted but are fully vaxxed but not boosted, and they've got like a catchy slogan around it. So we're getting ready for this next wave. And it's important to note also that the prime minister, I believe, right, of Russia has said the 4 horsemen are riding. And I just think that if we put our heads around what is the collective narrative around the realm going on, there is a lot of push towards some crazy violence right around the corner.
Uh-huh.
They made everyone mad towards everyone. Blacks are angry with whites. Whites are now starting to not have all of this white hatred. And and then, we've got different factions of melanated people against other factions of melanated people, and everyone's just pitting against everyone. And it's just those of us who are standing here looking at this greater arc going, holy shit, you're all being played.
Yes.
And we need to, at some point, realize that. And so Cliff was saying there's going to be that realization, and to just step out of the way is what he's saying. And
Yep.
so I just watched this clip.
I watched that today too, like 2 hours ago. Yeah.
Right, Jerry? So it's out there, but I think that there's a lot to be said here. And it's interesting, you know, we do have the astrologers in the house. So it'd be interesting to get a take on that.
Absolutely.
I said that the other
this-
day, how I felt like just getting out of the way. My gut was telling me just to stay out of the way. When Robert posted something, you and Robert were talking about something on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Robert's talking about this too. Dan,
Yeah.
what do you have? Dan's a for real astrologer as well.
So like what you were talking about, Nish, with like the anger, the pushback, the chaos. If I were to like guess when that would happen, it would be July 30th. Basically, Mars is going to be entering Taurus in the beginning of July. The North Node is in Taurus. That's what causes an eclipse. And Uranus, the planet of disruption and like electricity and revolution, is also in Taurus. And around July 30th, Mars, Uranus, and the North Node all come together in Taurus. And it's interesting, the last time Mars entered Taurus was January 6th. It was literally that day that Mars moved from Aries into Taurus, and the dude with the horns was leading the way. So I think whether it's a planned thing or a synchronicity or whatever, I could see some bullshit January 6th style stuff happening around that time. And also with Uranus being like this chaotic, electrifying force, they're already talking about power grid stuff. So if there's some outages and some stuff going down, I would also look to the end of July, beginning of August. And then just in general, Scorpio season 2022, there's going to be a blood moon on the midterm day. Literally on November 11th, there's a blood moon. And they seeded this stuff, the Roe v. Wade stuff, the gun control stuff, during this previous eclipse season, which was in the month of May. So eclipses always happen twice a year. And this year it's in Taurus season and Scorpio season. So I think I agree that there's going to be some chaotic Mars, Uranus, North Node, explosive stuff happening at the end of July. And it could be in line with the same, psyop-y nature of January 6th, because that's the last time Mars was in Taurus. And they signified that with that guy with the horns. And but really, I really think the midterms is going to be really a low point, and some fuckery is going to be going on, because literally the night of that election, there's going to be a blood moon in the sky. So that's what I see in the near future. And then really in March of 2023, Saturn leaves Aquarius. Mars, after being retrograde for like 5 months, finally leaves Gemini. And then Pluto, which takes like 15 years to move to a new sign, is moving into Aquarius the first time. So March 2023, I am like pointing out as like, if they have a new world order, if they have a new normal plan, it would make a lot of sense to really roll it out. And every year there's 2 seasons where it's happening, and it's this intense month. And the last intense month was May. And May was the most like psyop-y month we've had in a while. It was all of this stuff. So next time it's happening is going to be from late October to late November, which is Scorpio season. And like I said, the midterm election takes place during a blood moon. And so it's just going to be interesting to see like what type
What's
of drama.
being shed.
Yeah.
How
But
is
it's just it's in general, it's a very intense and kind of ominous thing to be happening. Like, you know, you could get into like the nitty gritty of like what it symbolically means for any given chart, but at a basic level, it's going to be a full moon that night that for a short period of time turns red as they're counting the votes. You know, you don't need to be an astrologer to know that, like, that's
Yeah, it's
Doobie.
symbolically rich. All the alignment of all of this through synchro mysticism or serendipity or actual social engineering that's applying these sciences is something to pay attention to. I mean, this is a big side eyes with all this, and everything, of course, is so highly manipulated because it's a game board and we don't actually know who all the players are.
Well, I always say every vote is a vote for Lucifer.
Girl, I can pull up to this. Now, see, I understand that because this is taking yourself out of the system totally. And I like, I was just talking about this, Occult Priestess, with the idea of so many people want to anthropomorphize the idea of Lucifer or the idea of Satan and make it a person when it's actually a system. It's
Or
a running
even
system.
more so an energy field.
Yes, it runs in the electricity. Why don't you talk about that a little bit, girl? Bring us into some of that woo.
Woo! I got the woo. I'm Lilu Woo Woo Dallas, and I bring the woo.
Yes.
So I play with astrology. I definitely don't call myself a professional because I don't want to diss those who are professionals, but I do play with it. But I took out my tarot cards because that's what I really do. When you asked about, I asked about the next 2 months, right? So this month and next month. And what came up was the Emperor, the Ace of Swords, the Hierophant, the Nine of Pentacles, and the Star. So it's all about, really, we've been to this class, I hope, but some people still need it. It's all about sovereignty. So taking, you can pull up to that, to taking yourself out of the system, which is so true. But I believe in the next 2 months, it really is a fight, personal fight against those who are trying to parent us in very dark ways, because many of us are over the age where we don't need that kind of parenting, nor did we ever. And that's how we started getting into what I call conspiracy, which is the deeper truth of life. And so what was the woo question? Could you bring me back to that?
Well, looking at the concept of Lucifer or Satan in the field and where we are now in the game.
Excellent. So if you want to learn about evil for real, go back to Egypt and look up Set, S-E-T, and the myth of Isis and Osiris, and that'll tell you about the origin of evil, which I think it's good to know your basis, your baseline, like where did it all start? But here now, I can speak in Star Wars terms for our audience, is that it is a force. There's a good force and there is a dark force. And it also plays with your subconscious. If you're not meditating and not clearing out your subconscious and not dealing with your childhood problems that made you drink or do drugs or have too much sex or whatever, if you haven't dealt with all that, then this time period on the planet is really going to mess with you and everyone else who has those kinds of issues still. So it is about getting out. How do we get out of that evil mechanism? Basically, you can call it a mechanism, but I believe it is a force, because even when you're completely alone and in nature, if you have darkness within you, which could be unhealed trauma, or it could be that you're an evil person, okay, you're going to attract the negativity from the land around you. So evil is a force that is everywhere, but so is positivity and love. And you are within yourself the source of one or the other, because you're cultivating light or you're cultivating darkness within your life through your actions, your choices, and your moral compass, right? So
excellent.
This is all
Yes.
it's about becoming a good person if you haven't already, because this mechanism of evil is going to start eating people, which I believe it already has. I mean, we've seen so many deaths through the jab. So we're going to start losing people massively in the next few years. And that's going to recalibrate everyone into where they can make better choices, whether they're cultivating goodness or if they're cultivating darkness, because most people aren't even aware that they're cultivating anything. Like it's not, they're right. So do you have a spiritual path? I guess that would be my first question. And the second question is, what are you reaching out for? Do you have a sincere hope in your hearty heart to be one with something that loves you bigger than you, something that loves you more than you can imagine, that's bigger than yourself? Or are you trying to run your world on ego? Okay, that's it.
Thank you for that. I agree. And I do like looking at the analogy of the Star Wars way of the Force. And I think that has always been such a prescient way to look at these innate energies, really, that are all around us. And then when we start factoring in frequencies, energy, and vibration through things like sound and light, especially, we start to deepen that field of awareness and how all this is actually plugging into the reality of which we are now navigating. And as we know, 5G, which was its main thing, was to bring on AR. We're working with AR right now. I mean, if you want to really look at those examples, I mean, look at the Covenant of the Ark and the holograph of the Queen in it last week. I mean, that coach is absolutely stylistically covered in the imagery of the Covenant of the Ark. It's absolutely to description of it. And then the fact that we had the hologram in there, this stuff's being introduced to people. Introduced to people all around in subtle ways. And the thing is, I understand the coolness factor and I understand the newness factor from a younger me that got very excited about all this kind of stuff. But now I see that these things are being used against us because for whatever reason, wherever we are in this narrative right now, I personally am not pulling in nastiness. My personal bubble is lovely. But when I cast my eye outside of my own cell, and I say that it's a cell in a body and not a block cell, just to be clear, an organic cell, I'm seeing a lot of cancerous stuff out there. And part of it is the introduction to these ideas through energy, frequency, and vibration and light and sound and the things that are making up what we consider our reality. And that's one of the things that is causing me a little bit of, I guess, anxiety. And I have no problem admitting I've been having anxiety and having a little bits of paranoia because everything's very dark out there. And sometimes I have been really challenged with riding the center line for myself and trying to stay balanced because, as we all said, all of us, at least here, and a lot of the audience, we knew where this was going 2 years ago. We really did. A lot of us were just bang on with it, with whether we were having it as a psychic awareness, whether we were just looking at deductive realities in the field, whether we were looking at receipts, whether we were looking at old agendas like silent weapons for silent wars, all this different information that allowed us to say, look at what's going on with this social engineering. And here we are now. We're in a different world. We're in a different dimension. The circle is no longer a circle. We're in a sphere. And we realize that it's deepened. And so this is where it's kind of like Uncle Cliff saying, stay out of the way because the violence is going to be real, and just do your best to stay out of the way.
It's not being on a black or white square of the Masonic checkerboard.
You can still
at
you're in between. You're walking in between the lines.
But you can still be looking at both sides.
Not saying absolutely, but you're not involved in either side. And
exactly, you have to stay uninvolved.
Correct, and by that you're walking the middle path. And I'm sorry,
yes,
people listening. I just
well, it's like watching a football game. You
phone.
might actually be invested in one team winning, but you're not in the game.
Correct.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's the same way for me. It's for politics. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I refuse to choose a side. I just observe both or all. Yeah. So that's all.
The middle path is what Buddha taught us about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Yes.
Bruce Lee.
And Jesus.
It's Bruce Lee. Be water.
I've been thinking of Bruce Lee this whole time.
We love Bruce. I think since we're at the 2-hour mark, I think we should allow people to tell us, and the audience out there, where you are in the world and all that, just so we at least get that out there. So, it's that plugging time. Eric, Dan, Occult Priestess.
There to help you learn about who you truly are and what you are.
It's chaotic neutral.
Yeah, and I think they have
I'm
value.
not chaotic or neutral. I'm just good, and it does work, by the way. Just to let you know from experience.
From a D&D perspective.
D&D. Sorry, guys.
Like I consider myself chaotic neutral.
I have a fight song, Jerry.
What's that?
I have a fight song for walking straight down the middle that you brought up, and it's by Kate Bush, and I put it in the chat.
I saw that.
Straight down the middle.
I love that song. We love Kate Bush.
Don't you think, though, that this has pushed people to realize where they're at in their lives, if they're truly wanting the best for whatever the outcome is, for the moral majority, or if they are going to be, on one side of the line or the other. To me, it seems like this has really been a push to find out who we really are as a person unto our own selves, what relationship we have to a higher power, if we believe in that or not. And, it's like the third, the third thing of Fatima, the third
prophecy.
The third prophecy of Fatima. They don't want to say what it is because it will push people to extremes.
Yes.
So what is that? Is that something we have to figure out for ourselves as to where we are within our lives, what we will deal with and what we will not deal with, what we will put up with as human beings and for other people? We all have to make a stand for where we are in our lives and what we believe in for not only our own families, but for the great majority of other human beings, because we're all human beings. There's no race. We are one race. And when are we going to realize that and start standing up?
With a few genetic defects.
Yes.
With a few genetic defects, yes. But can we just come together and realize we're being played by people that have been in this for a really long time?
Well, think about how many people are still stuck in their family dynamics and they're 60 years old and they're still acting like a teenager. That's what I see.
Oh,
yeah, me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I paid my way out.
So maybe this is us waking up to saying, hey, we can say we're sorry. We can admit we were wrong. Like, it doesn't always have to be, no, I wasn't wrong. We're not always on the defensive. Maybe we can all, I don't know.
Just get
along.
along.
We come to a place where we can get along?
Everyone is so emotionally damaged. If we try to get along right now with all this emotional damage, it would just be a train wreck. So we really have to heal within. That's the thing.
Yeah.
As
true.
an observer, I'm never on a defensive unless they get too close.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Well,
I've
The only thing
learned-
you can change is yourself, and that's hard enough.
That is right.
Yeah, we do
And-
not create our own reality. I'd like to bring up that new age bullshit that Mark Passio said so well, right? So we do not create our own reality. The first thing I did when this corona came out was watch the manifestors and the prosperity gospel people. And I'm like, let's see how they take credit for this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And what
thank
happened,
you.
because I didn't watch any of that. What happened with that?
I
Sorry,
didn't watch
Nish.
any of
Go ahead,
I
Nish.
didn't watch any of it either. I didn't need to, but when I talk about new age stuff that I'm not having, it's a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's bizarre how it's almost a cop out in a way.
Was that like the 5D Earth crap and all that stuff?
You know, I actually
What
had a
is
lot of talk show.
somewhere?
There
What
I
did you
want to
say?
know how many of them have ascended.
No, occult priestess. What are you saying?
There were a lot of talk show hosts that I actually confronted them on their shows, like Tim Ray, put that name out there, you can go find him, and said, how's that manifesting working out for you these days?
This because I've encountered this just having the shows and being on shows with people that would, pardon me, bring that kind of information forward. Now, remember, the one thing I wasn't brought up in religion, but I did get a lot of new age stuff in my upbringing. And so that's where I get knee jerky. And this is exactly why I continue to say, well, in my bubble, everything seems all right. However, and then also I am not creating this craziness and I'm not trying to participate in it, but I'm observing it. And if I can't talk about it, then I am also now one of those silenced people. It's bullshit. And I just get so tired of that coming back at me in some of these circles. And I try to be, look at me, I'm getting fired up. I try to be very grounded with it, but it is something that's out there that takes away our power in observance, in action, and understanding that if you're having trouble, if there's trouble in your life, that you created it is interesting. Yes, I'm a Jungian, of course, but not like a cult Jungian. And I understand the dynamic in our psyche to project out inner stuff that's going on, inner turmoil that's going on, and working through all of that. I get that. I get the idea of it, but to just totally throw yourself into the new age fires of that concept that's being pushed out there just feels like a major gaslighting effort by a lot of people to keep people silent.
It's the new human movement, right? The whole new human movement potential, or whatever that whole psyop was in the 60s, with all of, Alan Watts and oh my God, all those people in San Francisco and the Esalen Institute and all that bullshit.
The Omega Institute, which I worked at.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, holy crap. You worked at the Omega Institute?
I worked there for 7 years.
Rad, you lived there didn't you live
I lived
over?
there for 6 years.
So, I mean, there's an agenda.
A lot of them are gonna manifest sudden adult death syndrome, probably.
Yes, they are. I believe that.
It's a climate change.
So the new age, that was started more through theosophy and blavatsky, and we go back to Aleister Crowley, which actually through Aleister Crowley, we got to 12 steps of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yes,
right.
we did.
There's a lot. And, it's to parse out, because Alan Watts was brought up. And I will tell you, I love listening to Alan Watts. I find him inspiring. But like everything else, y'all know, I will listen to Perry Stone and that crazy demon preacher. I can't even think of his name.
Kenneth Copeland.
I listen to everyone. And I will tell you, listening to Alan Watts always inspires me. But is it I'm not buying into the cult of it, just like Jung. I come up out of that school, the Jungian paradigm. I think a lot of what's going on around Jung is cultish, which is what he had warned everyone about when he was 80. And so I think it takes a lot of discernment to expose yourself to stuff out there. And then, come on, people, be rational with it.
Nish, you are the most discerning person I've ever known in my life.
Oh, Suze, I can't imagine.
No, you are. You don't get caught up in all the stuff. Like, I get so emotional about this stuff, and you can like rise above it. And I'm always amazed. And I'm not doing this just to suck,
What
whatever.
am I, chopped liver?
I'm not. No,
Really, what's Jerry chopped liver
so
over
much
there?
stuff too, Jer. I will get to that. But Nish can rise above all that stuff where I cannot. Jer, you taught me that I do not. Whatever anybody has, whatever the feeling is, it's my feeling, not anybody else's.
Right.
So you have taught me a great service. Nish has taught me a great service too, but I still can't get to where she's at. Like, I can't.
Well, I have been. I will.
What is your sign?
My
I'm
sign.
a Cancer. Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
Suze is a Cancer. Yeah.
Then what are you? Nish?
Taurus.
I'm a Taurus sun, but then of course in Vedic I'm Aries.
Yeah, Aries. I was gonna say Aries.
First decan, and then of course 12th house sun, which explains all the darkness, y'all.
Oh no, it explains some beauty about you too, Nish. Beauty as well.
My love of like the dark aesthetic. But what I'm saying here is, like, I've been triggered, and I got triggered, I don't know, a few weeks ago on a radio show. I got triggered so bad. I've never gone off like that. And I was actually
Wasn't it on Freeman's show?
No. Oh God, no.
No.
That was great. No, it was live on air. I can't even remember what it was. I
The
just
Fringe FM show?
I don't remember. No, I don't think it was on Joe's network, but it was.
Yeah, sorry.
Anyway, it was live. It was on the radio, and I got triggered about all the white hate and the stuff going on, and I lost my center, and I don't do that very often. It's very, very rare, and I later that night, when you lose your center, and so
sometimes you're brilliant when you lose that center. I
agree, but the peace left me like in my heart, and so during trying to sleep, all of that was swimming around me that I don't usually have. All those words, all that kind of vitriol I was feeling, and really what I was defending was the fact that how are we getting to the point where we're literally being divided, skin deep stuff, old stuff that doesn't matter anymore, people that don't even there are Black people in America that have come to America as immigrants and seeking asylum that are here tearing this place up and spewing slavery crap all left and right, and they've just come here. They have no skin in that game here. In fact, the skin in the game is in their country with their own people, and so these acts of violence upon people here, Americans, whether they're Black Americans or white Americans or Latin Americans that have come here legally and paid their dues, are paying tax, whatever, they're in the system. They're Americans. And then for people to come in and start tearing up our home, tearing up the place, and then turning all the whites into the demons. And I lost it. And I just started raging on air. And then I thought, oh my God, everyone's going to hate me for standing up for white people for once, because nobody is doing that. And then I received a ton of love over it, but it was a moment of me losing my balance because I got emotional. I got too emotional. I don't like this idea that we are tearing ourselves up like this. And that felt very personal, because what I'm seeing, why I left even my homelands over there, the Minneapolis is a goddamn mess. It's hard in some neighborhoods to not get raped if you're a woman, and I can attest to this firsthand. And all the stuff that kind of brought me into the consciousness of this from non-Americans that came over seeking asylum from hardships. And then they bring that here and they put this onto us. And a lot of us who are good-hearted have brought them in, and our taxpayer, the tax money, we're setting up people. Meanwhile, we've got our homeless here. Meanwhile, the streets are everywhere terrible. And I felt so bad for all of a sudden defending my homeland here, which is what I consider the United States. You can hate it or not, but this is our home. And I think everyone on this panel, this is our home. And Suze, I lost my sinner, and I didn't mean to. And it's now something I'm struggling with, because what do you do when you have guests in your house that are tearing apart your house? How long do you smile and say, oh, it's all right, hon?
That's a very good question.
But because I am a white woman, that's radical, right? I can't actually stand up and say that. And this is a problem I'm having. I personally have never had slaves. I personally do not condone slavery. I personally think it's horrible, but I personally can attest to the fact that the stuff being done that has been done to me personally in the name of trying to bring this shit back up and put it in my face has been absolutely vile. And I'm just not one to sit down and have the continued proverbial shit piled over me. And so it's hard sometimes to find grounded, centered space when it's in your house, right? This is in our house, everyone. And
this is the lack of control.
It is.
Well,
It
it's
is.
also the lack of having a bogus narrative. I mean, it's the problem of a bogus narrative. Has anybody here found Dane Calloway on YouTube?
No, I don't know who that is.
He will blow.
Dean?
I mean, I found him almost 2 years ago.
So Radagast, is it Dean, Dean?
Dane?
Dane is somebody from Denmark.
Okay, Dane Calloway.
Yes, like
Care, you're on that, I know.
And
Black guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes, he is definitely copper colored. I mean, it's so funny to have this excitable person of color who is speaking in a dialect that I now call the dialect that I'm used to. Yeah, I'm in the heart of Appalachia. I mean, it's really funny. Somebody who I know is real smart, instead of saying narcissist, said narcissist. And I said, you do know the words narcissist? Yeah. She goes, yeah, too many syllables. We're going to say narcissist. And it's not like they don't, it's just like there's a certain way the mouth moves with the dialect, and certain big old multisyllabic words is just like, oh man, that ain't going to fit into the way we speak. It's not like they don't know the words. It's just when they say it, they sound ignorant, But
I've always thought that those people were not ignorant, that those people I've never believed
it is a
the
dialect,
mainstream narrative about, because I have family from Appalachia. I mean, we came through Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't believe that everyone from the Middle Ages was illiterate. I don't believe that.
Right.
Did the Middle Ages even exist?
Who built pyramids?
Oh, exactly.
I mean, come on. These people were not stupid.
Yeah, no, these people. I'm with some of the smartest people, and I'm not a dull knife.
No,
And,
of course not.
Exactly.
And I've gotten, once I got past, what it seemed like, and, and see people thinking in real time, responding to me. And I'm not, to me, again, there are certain intellectuals who like to kind of go, it's almost like a dick fighting match, I just like to engage where I normally live, my normal, robust kind of language level, just every day, the way I talk to Niche, the way I talk to y'all. And I have not had a problem with the people that I naturally gravitate towards. They don't speak like that. And if they kind of come over, go, oh, and if I use one of my words, they'll go, what does that mean? And they can just they take it right back in. Once it's described, they fit it into because they were listening. They have, you know what I mean? They're not lost. And so I said, these are sharp minds. These, you know, and that's what, to me, what intelligence, I like a nice, functional, robust, in real time intelligence, not a bunch of fact slinging and, you know, vocabulary slinging and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. This is, this is the thing. And this is why I enjoy intelligence, period. That's like one of the things that I look for in people. And certainly when we're talking about stuff that is like literally skin deep. So when we're talking about what is between your legs and the color of your skin, you've already lost me there, because I just don't function on that level. And so the fact that the world is trying to function on that level is so appalling to me, that we've sunk that low, that the social engineers can manipulate it to that lowly level is a big concern.
Let me get back to Dane, because it's a very applicable to our narrative. What his narrative busting that goes on here is that the majority of Black people or African Americans in America were here before the Europeans arrived.
Yes.
They are the indigenous people of the land, the majority of them, including many of the Caribbean Indians. They were also of copper colored people, what we would call colored, especially along the coasts and the warmer areas, because they weren't stupid.
They were Seminole and Cherokee.
Yes, but they own the land, and he has the deeds. And basically, as he traces people back, nobody has none of the quote unquote slave people have African ancestry. They're all indigenous Americans. So I've
seen some of that, Radagast.
Okay, so
yeah,
if this is valid, and again, I've spent hundreds of, or at least dozens of hours listening to him, and the money he has spent. I mean, and the coherence of where he goes. You know what I mean? You can stay intellectually engaged with him, even when he gets all emotional and he's funny. I gotta calm down now.
Well, that's
go ahead.
That's true, because at the time that the settlers came here, a lot of Caucasians were leaving to go off and join these tribes, and so you had quote unquote Black people who were just native to this land living together with whites, and it didn't really suit the purposes of the colonizers, right? It didn't suit.
Well, they were the ones who owned and already were working the plantations. Those were their farms. The plantations were their farms.
Right.
And then apparently there's some legal things where they say, oh, can we use your land or whatever? And of course, these are people who go by nobility, and you're supposed to be of your word. And these people were signing documents that these people, I mean, they basically tricked them out of their land. And then at first, what it is to satisfy their debt, they had to work their own land. I mean, it's really, I mean, he covers the history quite well. But the most important thing is when you look around and we see all these copper colored and Black people, majority of them are from Native American tribes, majority. And it's really interesting to hear Native Americans will talk about their African brothers, and Africans will talk about the Native American brothers and say, no, we ain't the same. Even though we look the same, we ain't the same.
Right. See, this is what we need to keep open minds when we're looking at revisionist history. And that's what this falls into.
But this is paper. But the beautiful thing is, this is like he's following paperwork of people's ancestry hundreds of years back.
I'm deep into that stuff myself, Radagast.
So, I mean, it's a good idea to play with when we're playing with our old narrative, like Fomenko's timeline. I don't need to adopt it, but I don't treat BC and AD like I used to in my feeling, when I feel into the stories. I don't have to go on any kind of crusade. We need to change this. Oh, no, take off. I don't get caught up on that. But I do know when I see this and I take it in, and suddenly the lay of the land, and especially the fuckery with history and chronology, again, we don't have to need to put our finger right on it. Just know that we're not dealing with real facts. In other words, as we try to navigate, as we try to apply our nous, the God-given mind to this, a lot of us are dealing with. We have to deal with the facts we were given, and treat everything else as but so we could come to some really bad conclusions because we're working with narratives of like, in other words, why people are pissed now. Now, let me tell you, people who used to own the land got plenty to be pissed off about. I mean, it's more, that's why it's more empowering than the slavery thing that they're carrying now, which I think is one of the reasons why it was turned that way. Because,
Well,
you know,
one thing,
the slaves are complaining. If the original owners are complaining, the story is different.
and you know, this is the thing that has struck me digging back, and I love all this stuff. I actually on the side live within all this stuff and looking at all the revisionist stuff through scholarship, and also there's a lot to be said whether people want to pull up to it or not, but the DNA stuff that goes on, that if you if we keep peeling back the narratives, we keep peeling back the stories, things change quite a bit. And it is hard to tell in the end when we're talking about ownership of something like Mama, the earth. I have, you know, I'm here, I'm a custodian of the things I have, I'm a custodian of the place I live, and I try to be a good custodian. I have treat everything naturally. My land is treated naturally and with respect. I'm living in as much in alliance with all of it. I treat the old things I have with respect, knowing that I'm a custodian. I don't own anything in that regard because we come in and we leave. And so the more we peel back narratives, especially ownership narratives, the more we see that, well, that party didn't own that space or they weren't occupying that space. Oh, and then you peel back again, like, oh, okay, so here's this party and they're there. And then you peel back again and you start to wonder, well, what is actually time when we're looking at time in conjunction with the layers of narrative? And it's tricky territory, but everything we all grew up knowing about our history, I do believe is all false. It was all a narrative that was created. And this is such a hot topic right now too, because people are emotionally attached to their stories, the stories that give them a sense of identity. And that's, again, the heart of identity politics. And so the idea that my great grandpa had this land over here and worked it, that's his land. Well, who was there before your great grandpa? And etc. We can go back. And we know that humans on this planet tend to con other humans into doing things that they don't want. There's a system here, some sort of caste system that seems to really be across the board. The Egyptians were able to do it. The Jewish people have been able to do it. The Slavs have done it. The Picts have done it. I mean, we could just go on and on with this.
The caste system we see is an archontic corruption of the original societal noble structure of society that was basically self-organizing and was not a closed system at any level.
I agree with that. And I'm with that also. And I do believe in that whole distortion idea. But I'm saying if I look out into nature, which is where I get my center point, and I look at how ants function, and then I look over here and I look at how bees function, then I look at how deer function, and then I look, you know, if I look at nature, if I look at pine trees and I look at the fact that pine trees excrete a certain chemical into the land around them that allows their offspring to grow and kills off all the competition. Well, you know, where are you at on that spectrum? And this is where I always think that it's a good idea not to think in black and white terms as far as good or bad, because, you know, again, the proverbial spider and the fly. Who are you? They both have a purpose here. They're both in the realm and they're both trying to survive. And I think when we start thinking about how complicated humans make things, it becomes a little bit more murky, because if my granddad is a farmer, say my granddad is a farmer in South Africa for 200 years and just got you know, his family, and now he's under this backlash of a genocide movement that's going on there right now, that's real and it's grotesque. how emotionally involved am I going to get? I'm going to be upset because it's my granddad. But then if I go back far enough, what did people down that line do to other people that had that space? And these narratives, we could go round and round and round. And at some point we have to actually inhabit the space we're in now and set aside the emotional content to somehow suss out how we're going to move forward, because all this is used against us. And peeling back the layers gives us an idea that this is some sort of continual cyclic experience that we're having. And I think that's where I'm more interested in focusing on.
It is. We haven't learned from history. Why are we where we are now?
Well, we didn't
Because
even
we
know
haven't
that what our
learned.
history was, Suze, because we were told our
Exactly.
history was one thing.
Yeah.
And there's active.
But I mean, there's enough stuff in history to say, look, you idiots, this shit's coming because it's happened before.
But that's why they're actively, the proverbial they, are actively trying to eradicate history.
Yes. Yeah.
If you don't know your
Nish,
history.
Speaking about your point before, you had said how far we had fallen. And that really struck me when you said that, because I believe what we're talking about here on that meta level is, as a collective, we've all fallen, well, not me, but many people, most people have fallen into materialism. And that's a huge topic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. It absolutely. And I think that starts to get kind of at the heart of the realm we're in. And part of what this separation is, if we step out of people trying to tell us narratives of what's happening, that we are in the material realm. We're in a material plane, and density has a space, and we are denser than other things. And there's also this idea of, well, we come from the idea of there's the circle in one plane, and then we go to our dimension, then we go to the next dimension, that circle becomes a sphere, etc. How deep does it go? And so, yeah, this is all. I am going to have to bow out here soon, so y'all can keep going. I
need to go to bed.
Good.
But I wanna allow people to tell us how people can find you in the world, and what are your, where are you, and where can people find you, and all that stuff. Why don't you start, Occult Priestess?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me and sending me the email. And you guys are just lovely and bright and great to fill my home with. So you can find me at occultpriestess.com. I also rock the fin over at rockfin.com/occultpriestess. And every weekend we've got something educational going down and building communities. So thank you so much, guys. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Well, thanks for joining. How about Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Jerry and Nish, for reaching out and having me on tonight. I'm on YouTube. It's Esoteric Journey is the channel, and we do a live stream every Thursday from 8 to 10 Eastern time, where we get into all types of different esoteric topics.
I'll drop a link in chat.
And it was good to meet all of you guys too.
It's good to meet you too.
Definitely. You too, Eric.
All right, Shoop Daddy, your turn.
Yeah, my show is called the Cosmic Keys Podcast. It's on all the podcast platforms. I do week ahead astrology forecast if you want to know what the astro weather is. And I also do birth chart readings. Now this is like my full-time gig, so I'm owning it that I am an astrologer. So hit me up if you need a birth chart reading. And everything is on cosmickeyspodcast.com. And thanks for having me, Nish and Jerry. I fucking love this show. So it's awesome to get the invite.
Yeah, we need to do this more often, I think. I love doing panel shows. Modwiz, Radagast, you want to pitch anything? Plug anything?
Well, nothing. I guess nothing on YouTube. I'm pretty much retired from YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do come on, it's going to be about my new passion of building, old vintage amps based on the old Fender schematics, and my experience with, being on a third build, building a, going from a guitar to a bass amp, how that's different. And, to see if any, these are the do-it-yourselfers, people like myself who, I don't have an electronics degree. I just would find a question, put it in a Google search and, or, search engine, and just little by little kind of come up to speed and find out, because electricity is kind of like, one of her forces, that's separated out from magnetism, which is the center of everything.
Yep.
I suddenly got into like the magic of electricity with the circuits I'm using being the language. I'm sorry, I took too much longer. So if I ever break it up, it'll be about that, and just my fascination, and other people who are doing the exact same thing and probably making and also, but now I've kind of, as a humble beginner, I have found my footing in a certain little section of amp building that I'm probably B+ competent on. And so I like to stay where my strengths are and just kind of nudge out, like grow it's just been fascinating because again, it's how, imagine, using this force of energy and then to use it to shape tone and to take music, out of the strictly organic spectrum, but how the tubes, by adding this dimension of even order harmonics that naturally develop, especially in the Class A tubes, you're now using this other factor, this byproduct of how electricity operates under a vacuum tube, and with a signal going through it, and what that does to the signal, and it adds a component that is pleasing. So that's the whole thing. If you're going to take a step out of the organic, make sure it's an expansion and not just an amplification.
Have you
looked Eric Dollard? Sorry, go ahead, John.
I wasn't going to say Eric Dollard. I was going to say Preston Nichols. Have you heard him talking about what vacuum tubes are?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know. I listen to Dollard. I know what they can be.
Yeah, well,
and they're also what we're using them for. They're also that.
Right. Try and find Preston Nichols' last interview before he died. It's got some real interesting vacuum tube information in there.
Where it was levitating stuff, Joe?
No, about how it's there's like a zero
galaxies form.
0 point where there's no dimension in there. Yeah, it's real. Yeah,
galaxies usually form.
Nice.
Vortexes. All right, it's great. Well, this was a fantastic show, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining in a pinch. And we appreciate it, and we'd love to have you all back sometime. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Nish, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank everyone. This was a fantastic Back to It show.
Yeah.
Thank you, panel. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry's now moved, so it's a new day.
I'm moved. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with Tommy Kerrigan from Tommy Podcast, which should be a good time. Bye, Radagast. He's gone.
Radagast he left.
He bailed.
So thank you, everyone.
And Dave Barsky did text me. He totally forgot, he said, and he's super sorry.
Damn that Barsky.
God damn it.
Yeah, but we got to talk to you.
Right.
Yeah,
and everyone else.
I'm definitely a worthy replacement.
Definitely.
Yes.
The three of you have been so fantastic. Our core here is Suzanne, Jerry, and I know that this was such a wonderful experience to just be back with the three of you. Well, the two of you, and then to have three of you is here with us. Thank you so much.
It's like a giant orgy of intellect.
Yes.
All right. On that note, I'm out.
I'm
Bye,
out too.
everyone.
Love you guys.
Have a good one, everyone. Take care.